Hey there, internets. This is Kyle with another edition of the My Business Launch Secrets YouTube channel. I hope you're all doing amazing today and just really kicking ass out there in the world and whatever part of the world you might be calling in today from. Today is day 99 of my journey from starting a new online business, trying to get from $0 to $1 million within a year, and doing so on a part-time basis because I still got a day job and bills to pay and kids to feed. This is, of course, just my video diary of what's just going on in my life today, so it's not exposing any amazing business acumen as of yet because I'm just learning all this as I go. But this is more just me sharing a bit of my emotions and things that are going on in my life that are impacting my business ventures for the better or for the worse in many cases. And just trying to document that in a way that at least I have for reference at some point in the future when I look back at all this and laugh at myself at the insecurities and the various bullshit I put myself through mentally. The mental gymnastics that I like to play in my head. I won't say play with myself because that's in any case, honestly, I still haven't made any new progress in the business front. Same struggles as in past days of just not really having the motivation. I mean, one thing I was listening to today, which somewhat demotivated me further, although I'm trying to turn that more into a positive, but I haven't quite figured out how yet, is back to some, these discussions about this ChatGPT tool from OpenAI, and I think it was Alex Ramosi had posted up about had a nice little pictorial reference to show that this ChatGPT that's open to the world now for free to anybody can go use was trained on a certain set of data, right? So it's not really it's not an AI in the sense that it has its own intelligence. It's just has many things. When people say AI, it just means it's a machine that has been given a certain set of input data, and then smart engineers have figured out ways in which to teach it how to process that data in a meaningful way so that it can spit out realistic answers that are intelligible in a standard human tone, or you can even adjust the tone of voice you want it to speak and it will change the language accordingly. But anyway, the data set that the current version that's out there online for anybody to use was trained on is a relatively small chunk of data from the internet from like 2018 timeframe or something. And Alex Ramosi was just pointing out that they have a version 4 that's already like in the works and already going through test trials or something, and just the sheer volume of data that the version 4 was trained on compared to version 3 is just like immensely bigger. Like a small tiny dot on a page as being like the current training set versus like a big old massive circle being the volume of data that it is now being trained on for the next version. And again, this is only like version 4. Obviously, they're going to continue to evolve this over time. And, I guess, I've talked about this before in terms of the implications of these things. And again, I think definitely recommend checking out Alex Ramosi's video that he talked more about it. He, definitely does research on that and has some good perspective in terms of the ramifications, but I would almost take it a little bit further from some of the things he alluded to in his discussion and say if the training data set is getting immensely bigger with each of these iterations, and if they just released this one for the version 3 that's open, but they technically already have version 4 ready, well, that means version 5 is probably like maybe in the process of churning through a whole much larger set of data, right? So it's not like it's going to be years in between these versions that are coming out. It'll probably be at a relatively fast clip, and probably their only limitation is just, dealing with the sheer volume of data and the fundamental hardware issues of how you physically process that amount of data. You're just going to have bottlenecks in doing that. But nevertheless, I think that as it pertains to my business, and this was something I think I heard on one of Joe Rogan's podcasts. He was talking to somebody. Not that I listen to those podcasts entirely because they're way too long for my taste, but some good clips, of course, you can find on the YouTubes. And he's talking to some expert dude, who has expertise in AI and stuff. And he was sort of bringing out the point that, again, as you expand the volume of data that it has, what that does is basically wipes out any human quote-unquote expert of having kind of a viable business model. The whole expert business model, whether it's creating courses about something or offering training or coaching, I mean, coaching is a little bit different, but anything where you you're consulting, I guess you're using your expertise, your brain power to consult on whatever a given topic is, whether it's like professional consultant or whether it's, again, just like some online course creator or something like that. As you build up the capability of the AI chat tool or whatever, like, you lose a lot of the need to have kind of expert courses about things, because it's only going to get better and more sophisticated in its ability to respond even at length to questions that people have. So again, in my case, I was thinking about, I'm going to use my expertise in engineering to just create courses for people that are learning how to do circuit analysis or want to learn about solar cells or whatever the thing is. Well, I don't think it's in the too distant future that you will just have probably AI web interfaces that you can go to and say, teach me about whatever the topic is, a DC circuit. And you obviously have the text format of it telling you a response, but I'm sure it's easy, obviously, then for them to pair that to a voice. And then it's probably not too difficult for them to integrate the capability for it to, in real time, as when you ask the question, kind of draw out sketches to help teach you about the thing. And so I personally think, like, the whole online education business, even though, some people think this is going to be this $1 trillion business over the coming years, and people saying, it's going to put, universities and traditional colleges kind of out of business, so to speak. I mean, I don't think traditional universities and colleges are going away anytime soon, but I do think, again, with the ability of these AI-based tools to rapidly spit out, information that it has digested after consuming, trillions upon trillions of articles. Like, I could just, if I wanted to create a AI tool just to teach somebody about circuits, I mean, I could almost instantly feed in a dozen textbooks about circuit analysis. And again, as we've seen with its capabilities so far, it would easily be able to kind of digest all that, be able to summarize it, taking the best of all of those individual textbooks and giving you a coherent answer that is understandable. Now, again, as I mentioned previously, I'm not sure what exactly the capability is in terms of, like, if you're wanting to learn how to solve a problem and you want to feed it a specific problem and have you give an answer, if it's obviously something beyond just like basic math problems or something like that, but it's, I have a circuit, I need to analyze all the nodes in the circuit. Can you show me how to do that? Like, it can't do that. That's not what it's designed to do. But again, if that's something there was enough demand for, I guess I'm sure it wouldn't be hard to come up with that. I mean, almost that sort of pushes me to like business ideas of maybe I should find like a software developer that I could just pay to do some of these specific things, leveraging, I mean, with open source OpenAI, they have interfaces that you can develop tools that kind of plug into like ChatGPT or some of their other core tools. I guess I haven't looked into details. And anyway, it can interface, so you can make use, I'm sure for whatever fees they're charging people to do this, you can make use of those tools that the AI folks are experts in, and just have the developer kind of build a front end, whatever, figures out the best way to translate those answers in a way that gives a specific types of context for the type of capability I want to have, right? I mean, this is what, there's a lot of AI kind of tools for copywriting these days. And I don't really know if all those folks have their own actual individual AI tools, or they're, again, maybe just tapping into somebody else's capabilities, and they're just building a kind of front end that if you're a copywriter and you want to, that you need to make like advertisements and you need to write sales pages or sales letters, and there's certain formats you typically need. So they just kind of built the front end to ask you specific questions like about your product, and then boom, it feeds it into the AI to generate automatic responses for what you want to see and the type of content that you're looking to write. And they've already been able, they're already functioning business models that are doing that type of thing. So again, maybe thinking about what are some specific niche areas that could leverage this capability, but just need like a different front end that's developed to link those two together for a specific kind of niche, a specific audience, right? So, I mean, that's kind of an idea. I don't I wasn't really looking to get into like a whole software development type activity and, have to find partners. And as Alex Ramosi has talked about a lot, trying to hire software developers to come up with a product is a very difficult thing to do. And they're not really actual partners in your business, because if you're the owner of the business and you don't really know much about how the software has to be developed or know the complexities involved, and you have no way of knowing whether that developer is like, if you're paying them the right amount of money to do what you want them to do, right? And you have no way of knowing if they're moving fast enough or they're intentionally going too slow, or, all the many problems involved, I guess. So, that being said, I think that there are plenty of examples where people have figured all that out and been successful at it. But I think the graveyard of failed development attempts is vastly deeper than the area of ones that have been successful in doing so. So I'm not saying I'm looking to get into doing that specifically, but again, just to say, I'm just, I guess, trying to think through, given the fact that I know whatever this business I'm trying to build, it's not something it's going to be successful like overnight, and probably not even within the next year, maybe within like 3 years or 5 years. I have a reasonable level of success in doing it. Again, at the pace of evolution of these AI-based tools, maybe in 3 years or 5 years, again, there's no need for me to just be like an expert and just be more or less regurgitating information to people, that they could easily just go to some AI chatbot and plug in to get instant answers, and it'd probably be a lot cheaper than paying me $500 to take my course or whatever the thing is, So I don't know. Did have an idea on the way home of just, it's so dumb, but, creating a YouTube channel or, business around explaining complex topics in a way that everyday people can understand, and which kind of got to, again, me still trying to figure out like what is something I'm really passionate about doing, and what's something I would feel easily motivated on a daily basis to come, down here at the end of the day after kids are bed and spend time with the wife and all that, but still with the very minimal amount of energy I have remaining at the end of the day, what would I be like really motivated to sit down and work on? And I was thinking like maybe that's an area that I would be interested in doing, because that's just kind of how, I guess that's how I think I've leveraged my educational background the most. Is not, I don't believe I have been a great contributor in my field technically, in terms of, I have a PhD. I'm not out there, doing cutting edge research. That's just not the type of work that I have gone into. And even when I was doing my PhD, I didn't think anything I was doing was really that great. It was sufficient to get the credit of having done the amount of work that was sufficient to get a PhD, but I wasn't ever really one that's like, oh my God, I thought this was the greatest thing since sliced bread, in terms of coming up with new ideas and really exploring the nitty gritty. Really what I found myself doing since then is more so trying to come up with ways that simplify, rather complex topics in a way that can be utilized by people who are non-experts in said technologies. And so really I'm working more in a customer interfacing type of role, with engineers actually doing deep technical work on the other side, and I'm just trying to help translate from both ends of the spectrum, understand what a customer is really asking for, who's not really an expert, feeding that to engineers to go work on specific things, and then when they have something done, helping them to understand how do we need to communicate that back to the customer in a way that the customer would understand, right? But I guess my idea is trying to move towards something that's a little bit more mainstream, meaning something that would have kind of broad relevance. And as I mentioned, there are some big channels on YouTube that are, made by like engineers who are, showing engineering types of concepts, but in ways that are, tangible and people can kind of grasp. Even, any person, even kids, should be able to kind of understand what's going on behind some contraption they see out on their house or wherever. And trying to just explain how those things work in a way that people can understand. And again, there's very successful channels that are doing that type of thing. And I sort of dismissed those early on, of me just being another type of those channels. But then again, my mindset has shifted a little bit of not being so, trying to not be so worried, not say it doesn't cross my mind, but trying not to be so worried about what has somebody else already done, but just saying, hey, is that something I think I could do? And is it something that I'm passionate about doing, such that, again, I would feel motivated to create that type of content? Obviously, you hope, ideally funnel people through some sort of business, whether it's, again, maybe purchasing a course or getting some kind of coaching or whatever the thing is, right? But anyway, I thought about, again, with ChatGPT, I mean, I bet you could feed it in prompts like describe how an electrical circuit works to a third grader or something like that. And I haven't done that. I should probably do that just to see what it says, but I'm sure it'd come up with some pretty clever ways of answering that, and then using that as like how, as my video script, maybe modified slightly in terms of what I would be putting out there in the world. But again, then my brain just goes to like, well, the AI can already do that, so why do I need to just translate what the AI is doing for people? But then on the flip side, people argue, well, the human element of all that is still the human needs to be able to be there to curate the information that the AI is spitting out, because the AI is not always perfect, and so you still need a human in the loop, so to speak, to be sure you got the right information going out. But again, you argue, is that even necessary? Do people even really care? I don't know. I could argue it both ways. But anyway, going back to like the evolution of these tools and capabilities, I mean, I've started to think more deeply about like real implications of our way of life. I mean, I've been concerned for a while about what the world's going to look like for my own kids when they're my age, in 40 years, just because I know things will certainly be much different in that time frame. But now I'm even starting to think like, I think in my generation's lifetime, before I'm retirement age, like in the next 15 years, I think things could actually be very significantly different than what they are today. As I was talking about with somebody earlier, I think even big, ginormous tech companies are at risk of what's going on with some of these open AI capabilities if they're not able to understand how to integrate it into their existing business models. If they are reluctant in doing so, then I don't think there's any doubt that others are going to overtake them. I mean, even think of like the Googles and the Microsofts of the world. Now, the problem becomes from a more existential crisis kind of mode is to say that there could be some companies out there, some big companies that are probably already investing in these tools like internally with their own R&D teams that are maybe taking intentional steps to slow the progress because of concerns about, reaching, broad general intelligence from a machine, which is troubling in many ways. And I think there are certainly some in the community that are reluctant to put a lot of development into these types of capabilities for that fear alone. But that doesn't mean there's not plenty of other people right behind them that have no qualms about any of that and would probably be like happy if a machine eventually took over their domain or whatever. And so they're going to push these out there like no matter what. So I think this is a bit troubling in many ways, just to see the fact that this capability has rapidly advanced in a relatively short amount of time. I think for the past, obviously, 10, 15, 20 years, people have just kind of been throwing it out there. It's like, oh, yeah, AI can do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, whatever. I think seeing now what the capabilities are in terms of the linguistic capabilities that they have, and again, their ability to be indistinguishable from speech and from human, language patterns. That's, again, just something I didn't really ever appreciate. And, that point alone, again, as I've talked about before, when you start to mix that with its ability to create images, with its ability to create videos, like I just don't think it's a great thing overall, I guess. But again, from a person that's trying to start a business, I'm just trying to think through, again, maybe there's something I need to be thinking about how I am leveraging this to create a business around this in some way. I mean, not just, obviously I talked about, well, sure, if I'm creating a business and I just need to create content for social media or whatever, sure, I could use the chat bot to write out a script for some Facebook posts or whatever, and that would help expedite, my own workflow. But even beyond just that application of how do I use those tools, but more so to like, how could I structure a business that's actually built around that capability in providing some service to somebody else, I guess. And again, I heard in some discussion earlier today also somebody talking about, again, the whole copywriting industry, that this doesn't necessarily signal that all copywriters are going to lose their jobs, but, maybe 80% of all copywriters will lose their jobs, and the 20% that survive are the ones that have learned how to leverage this capability in their own business to respond to customers' needs like much more rapidly, as opposed to maybe traditional copywriter gets a job, maybe a month later they spit out the sales letter or whatever it is, to copywriter gets a job, turns it around within a few hours or within a day, because again, they're relying mostly on this AI to generate the bulk of the text, and maybe they just do some minor modifications as needed to sort of clean it up. And so it's those people that are able to adapt. The implication of using that in their own industry are the ones, again, that are likely to survive. So, again, just trying to think through, is there some angle I should be working on, again, since this is kind of a late-breaking technological development, which is, I don't think it's just like a flash in the pan sort of thing that's going to go away in a year or two. I think it's here to stay. And generally in business, people, the ones that are the most successful are the ones that are able to identify those trends, latch onto them early on, build their business around that, and you're really able to ride the wave before it kind of breaks, and at least in terms of, having the now predominance of like all these other lower level players starting to latch on and eat away at your profits over the long term. No, I mean, I don't really have any great ideas in terms of how I could do that specifically, but that's just kind of what I'm thinking through, I guess, at the moment, before I, again, just try to go full tilt into a model that's, sure been proven over the past 5 to 10 years of like the typical traditional online education space, but one in which I'm, again, just fending for scraps more or less at this point in time. I guess I'll leave it there for today. Hope you're all doing well. Keep on kicking ass, taking names, and I'll see you next time. Peace.